Welcome everyone. This is once again your host Shailesh bringing you live from NZ World News. As always, we try to get more and more positive awareness to the people. And today, New Zealand and we all in across the whole nation, we are having local board elections, and this is the most ground reality where we understand, where we try to make a difference to the people's lives. And today, what a what a great honor for me to invite the youngest, I guess, just turned 18, and you would believe that she's standing for a local board as a candidate. And this is at the Waitakere local board. So Waitakere Ranges is also one of the most diverse, I guess, an area where you can find a lot of ethnicities and stuff. But let's invite Bianca for this beautiful interview that she's going to give us today. We are going to talk more about her visions, why she is doing this, what she is going to bring, and what is her purpose, and how did she trigger all this. So all these questions are mind-boggling for all the listeners. Listen to her so that you can make an informed decision when you vote or when you choose your candidate. So welcome, Bianca, for this beautiful conversation we are going to have. There is not a Q&A. It is just what's your thoughts and what the way you are. Just be yourself. So at the age of 18, and this is amazing to see young, fresh energy and positivity and thoughts, because thoughts that matters. People sometimes say actions, but actions comes only when there are thoughts. So without thoughts, there is no action. And I welcome you to this beautiful conversation. Tell me something about you first. What really triggered? And you're 18. What is going on at the moment in your mind when you are running for this candidate? How did it motivated? What was the trigger point?
Hi, so thanks for having me. Um, so when I was about 16, I joined a rock climbing club called ACYDC, and this rock climbing club it's really focuses on the community as well as competitive rock climbing. So through this rock climbing club, we do stuff through disabilities where we teach people with disabilities how to rock climb. So it could be
Right.
anyone from someone in a wheelchair to someone who
Mm-hmm.
has ADHD. And so through that, we actually went to the local board for a meeting with them. And I realized that they were advocating for young people, but there was no one who was necessarily young on the board. So I decided that when I turned 18, I was like, I'm going to put my name forward. And I
Mm-hmm.
did.
Wow. Oh, that was one of those trigger. But I think disability is a very valid point you raised, because today, after COVID, particularly, we have noticed a lot of discrimination or lot of disadvantage or lot of, not been looked after or cared for the disability section, which is really, really important. And they have been discriminated unnecessarily, the disability from the normal. And so it's definitely good initiative that you thought, and it's really eye-opening for many people who are listening as well. There are young people, there are old people. It's not about that. It's about your vision and the thought. So come back to that. What a starting point was for you. How do you see why? So putting up hand in the local board candidate as what's your first foremost, thing that getting this election passed, and then what's your first thing or priority that you will be doing it?
So I want to redirect investment back into our community because I feel like it's so overlooked and underinvested to. So it means without that investment, we really struggle to actually make change. So we need
Mhm.
to push investment back into our community so we can do things like support the community and support people with disabilities, support the environment.
Right, right. So investments, when you talk about investments, one is an investment in the people. That means you give your time and effort to the people. And then the other side of the coin of investments is really the economic growth of your
Yeah.
area. And that economic growth again goes hand in hand with the communities and with the people that we invest in. So how do you see that? What is the bridge? What do you see today that is lacking in the area that you are in, that you would like to make a slight change or make twin something aware? What is that? Or is
I'm
there
seeing
anything?
a lack of people who are actually listened to. Like,
Mm,
I'm going to a whole bunch of events and everyone's asking you questions and they're bringing their complaints to the table and they're saying, I've told people so many times, like I've spoken out before and nothing's changing. So that
Mm.
shows me that like the government isn't listening to the community's
Right.
needs and they're doing it for the community. So I'm like, what are you doing if you're not listening to
Mm.
the people?
Mm. So true. So true. And do you think, is it the lack of care or lack of educating or lack of, more making them aware or lack of the things that the outcome that is what we are seeing, that they are not aware. The outcome is every time same, same, same if you don't change. And then you see that, oh, this is nothing is changing. As you rightly said, people complain and then they say, oh, nobody's listening and nobody's hearing us. So how are you going to make that transition change?
I think it's a bit about them being like overlooked and
Right.
thinking their complaints aren't necessarily that big, but that one person complaining could that like many other people could have that same issue. They just haven't spoken up about it yet.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be able to create a connection between the community and the local board. So by
Right.
making sure that more people are speaking up, more people are telling them what they need, so that we can actually create drive and we can see the change that needs to happen.
Yeah, you made a very valid point about connecting people or connections between the local board and the communities. And this is where most of the local boards, some of the local boards are also lacking, even if they want to do, even if they have fresh ideas, even if they have had good ideas. But the connection, to make that connection is very vital and very important. How do you see that as, the communications? You are from a younger generation, you are from this generation of what we call it, the Gen Z or Gen Z.
Yeah, Gen Z.
And in that regard, social media, digital media, communication is one of the strongest point for this generation because we didn't had all that communication channels and it was only one-on-one meeting in person and that's how we valued. But today is like you can reach out to everything and everyone through social media, digital platforms. So why do you think is lacking the connection between the local board? Is it because the mindsets, or is it because the age groups that are running the local board that has not been made aware? Or what do you think is lacking to communicate?
I think it could be the fact that I think when communicating to other people, you need to communicate to them and their communication style. So,
Mm.
like, if you were to communicate to a young person, you probably would go through social media.
Right.
Whether an older person, maybe through the newspaper or something, another form. So it's
Yeah.
about communicating to them in the way that they communicate best, so that they can
Mm.
actually get the message. Because if you're trying to target a young person and you put it in the newspaper, they're probably not going to read that, and they're
Mm.
not going to know what's happening.
Mm. Yeah. And this is what you said that, why you want to be elected is to create that connection, to create, connection from politics to the communities, to the local board, and then also for the families. But do you think that more involvement when you come in as an elected or when you have the opportunity or when you, whatever you're doing, do you think that the connection between the younger generations with your generations and younger to come forward, irrespective of whatever the work or the community needs, that they should be involved? And there is a lack of involvement from the younger generation, or what do you think?
Yeah, I do think there's definitely a lack of involvement, but I think it stems from maybe a lack of understanding of how the local board actually influences us. Because
Mm.
there's not a lot of education around it. You're not really exposed to it. And to be honest, most people that I talk to, they're not planning on voting and they're not going to vote because they don't know anyone on the board. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, because they haven't connected to them.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how are you going to change the mindset, Bianca?
That's
It's
a really
about
good
your mindset,
question.
it's about the local board mindset. Yeah.
I think everyone, when they think local politics, government, they kind of think older person, maybe an older man. So I think by if I were to be elected, I think that would kind of give people a different view of those who are in government.
Mm-hmm.
And so change their mindset a bit about there actually is someone who is trying to represent me. So maybe I should be maybe I should vote. Because there are people out there who are representing me now where before there maybe wasn't, or they
Yeah.
didn't connect with them.
That's right. That's right. So unless you have taken the first step of getting involved. So
Yeah.
obviously now the next step is also making them aware and making them connected and making them heard, or irrespective of your age. It's not about, as I always said to at the start, like it's not about the age or anything. It's about the thoughts that what you want to do and that can make a difference. And people of all walks and all ages can understand the thoughts that okay, if you want to do this, that is really good for the community, that is really good for the politics or political side of things. So in that regard, what do you think your qualities are and that your skills are that you could bring, if I have to ask you that?
So right now I'm actually in university. I'm doing pre-med at Auckland University. So I
Mm,
think for that, I'm to do that, I feel like you need quite a lot of motivation and quite a lot of drive. And I think I bring that to this as well because it takes a lot of effort to going out there and physically putting up the signs, going to the meetings, putting your ideas forward. And so I think you need to be a doer and you need to have a drive and you need to have a goal. And I have all those
mm.
things.
Right, 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 right. Okay. So coming to the one of the things that we always, want to know that, your drive, your skills, your qualities are all there. So when you convert all these things into your priorities to make the communities better, what will be your top three priorities if I have to ask you?
Yeah. Okay. So definitely the redirect investment because we can't do anything without some solid investments in the community. I think because of where I live, it's very environment. There's a lot of environment around us. So I think we need to be able to protect the environment. We need to open up the tracks because all the tracks are closed right now.
Hmm.
We can't walk on them because of things like cardiac dieback. So we need to be able to fight cardiac dieback and protect the wildlife and the environment. And I also think by opening up the tracks, it really helps to improve mental well-being because people are able to go outside and connect with nature and
Mm,
they're able to do things that they love again.
mm,
Um, and I also think fixing things like our roads and our pathways because we're having quite a lot of issues, especially around Glen with a whole bunch of intensification, which means increase people on the roads, but we don't have the support to do that yet. So we need to make sure that our roads are actually able to hold up all the extra people and housing intensification around us.
right, 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 right. So that's something you brought up this topic like where mental health, and has been very much, and you have seen you're 18, so when you must be COVID hit at 2020, you must be, like what, 13, just
Mm,
turned into teen. What's the difference that you see as a teen to now from COVID's with the well-being aspect of every person, irrespective of their age? How do you see that now? That whether it is and then again complied with that compiled with that was one of the biggest floods that happened, Gabriella, that came in, and then we had big floods in Auckland, and particularly many areas were affected in Auckland throughout, and that also caused a lot of grief after COVID, and that again multiplied the mental health or the well-being of the community. So as a young teen, how do you see now that that it's not about age or anything. It's about solving the issues, whether it is houses issues, whether it is floods and storm issues, and local board and the local council is quite responsible in that regard to at least raise the concerns and solve the problems, or at least try to solve the problems. So how do you see you addressing these issues, the housing, the stormwater, the floods, the businesses that are down under their premises, how do you see?
yeah. So with COVID, I personally saw my age group because it was such an isolated time period, a
Yeah.
spike in like um social anxiety because
Mm,
people weren't able to connect. And I think that's definitely affected, like it still affects people I talk to today. So that means they're unable to go to uni because they're anxious about going out and seeing the world. So I think we need to be able to create community support for people that are experiencing those kind of things because it does affect their entire lives and they aren't able to do the same things that they were before COVID.
Mm,
Um, and I think all the things like the flood that creates like extreme financial stress,
mm,
um, because your house is ruined, your property is destroyed. So it's extreme financial stress, which can lead to um
mm.
other stresses in your life. So I
Absolutely.
think it's about ensuring that we have the right measures in place to prevent
Mm,
these things from happening in the first place. Because we should be able to have a stormwater system that can manage and deal with this climate change issue because it's so big. And there's definitely going to be another storm.
mm,
There will be another storm. And
mm,
if we're not changing after what we've seen happen, we're
mm,
going to have the exact same results and we're going to have the exact same community impact. So I
mm,
think we need to uplift our sewage water, our drain systems to ensure that we're able to
mm,
minimize the damage. We need to make sure our buildings are actually well built. They're
mm.
making sure that they're qualities and that we're investing into infrastructure, roads, and everything around us so that we're able to not just um deal with the issue once it occurs, but prevent it from happening in the first place.
Exactly. As they say, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
And so when you know that climate change is real, when you know that this is not going to go away just by ignoring, you know, first protocol of as a local board or as a local candidate, or when you become a local board elected member of the local board, then the first and foremost protocol is to address and try to make some kind of workaround process or to put some things in place for the real environmental changes that are happening or the climate change that is happening. So to prevent that, you have to address to the council. How do you think your communication will be when it comes to, council can say, oh, you're too young to understand. This is why my reading of some of the things that people can come and say, oh, you're too young. Because I remember when Jacinda became the prime minister, she was, oh, you're too young, whether you can handle the nation, and then she had
Yeah.
all these challenges. So, in that regard, I just want to know climate change is real. So, prevention is better than cure is our should be our aim. And council is the one who is accountable. But to give council the information and awareness or put things in place, what would be your communication style that they would accept it, they would agree it, or they would at least listen to you and heard you? How do you see that?
So I had that same like I guess fear before I actually signed up to do it. Um, but after like is it events maybe every week, where you actually meet the candidates and the candidates speak and all that. And
Absolutely.
I realized that the people, like, they're actually quite nice people, and they kind of all have very similar
Mm.
thoughts and backgrounds
Yeah.
about climate change. And most people that I have spoken to do also agree climate change is such an issue, and they do want to do something about it. So I feel like majority of our morals they do align. So I think that's a good starting point, to be fair. Um, and I think they're also very excited to have someone young on the board.
Mm.
Like no one's being like
Mm.
rude about it. They've all been very, oh my God, that's so
Mm.
cool that you're standing up. So I don't think that's necessarily an issue, but I think it is just about making sure that I like stand firm on the ground and I'm like not easily swayed. So it means just making
Mm.
sure that my points are clear,
Yeah.
communicating with a clear style and not being swayed.
Absolutely. I think you made a very valid point, which I have seen in my career as well when I talk to candidates and to ministers that, like the first and foremost thing is how do you make them accept or how do you make them heard? And through events, as you rightly said, that we have to create more and more events of awareness to talk about issues, to talk about concerns to the community every week, 2 week, whatever, like, ongoing communication. So that creating events with ongoing communication on various topics is definitely is what we see very much lacking because as you said at the start that people are get tired about like we are telling but nobody's hearing, but then this is what we want to do is we keep telling through events, through bringing speakers, that matters, that really are into that, and that can really make awareness, positive change in the mindsets of the communities. So, very well, I personally feel that that's a good point that you raised is creating events to talk about on various levels. So, whether it is floods, storm water, whether it is rates, anything. So, in terms of that, I wanted to ask you as a economic and cultural, because when you talked about investment, I know you talk about economic and cultural development, and that's again the community engagement. Do you think in your area, what do you see? You have grew up in that area for now, generations to come. But what do you hear the most stressing, pressing issues to bring or to engage communities together? Do you think there is a lot of things that is open that we still need to do on that front? Or is it at the moment, what do you think in your area?
Um, I think there probably is definitely a lack of bringing community together and support because we don't really have anything that does that
Hmm.
in place. Like we don't really have community events. We don't really have many community groups.
Right.
So yeah, so I think we're just going to be able to create something where people feel like they are welcome and they're invited and they actually want to go and enjoy what they're
Mm.
doing. So I think it's just about creating a space where people can do that, which we don't really have now.
Right, right, right. Okay. And then in terms of, yeah, you're right, absolutely. But there is a lot of things that can be done. And then how do you see yourself and the younger groups around your same kind of groups that you are instrumental in, with the youth group and bringing them and making them aware and then involving them? How do you see that as a big challenge for you, or it can be easily done by you?
Um, I think it's super important to have the youth voice involved because we
Mm,
are growing up in the environment that is created and it's not created by us, and we don't necessarily have a say, especially if you can't vote. So I
mm,
think it's super important to ensure that their voices are heard. And I think a way that could be done is through schools, because
mm,
that is where the young people are, and going to schools, talking to them so they can actually get to know the people on the board and asking what their needs are, what their wants are. Because issues that they may be facing, people on the Liverpool board aren't facing.
mm.
But things like young people trying to find a job, like it's so hard to find a job and they don't have the
Correct.
support to do that.
Mm,
And that's hasn't been brought aware to the local board because they don't know. They already have jobs, they have a good CV.
yeah. I think it's valid that what you said, because when decisions are made without younger generations or younger people taken into consideration, that becomes a big hurdle, because you take decisions, the local board or the council takes decisions without even taking a reference or a consent from the youth group or from the younger group. And that becomes a big, like, as if like you're working only for a certain age group or certain class of people. That divides literally. But you are absolutely right. Starting from schools is a good area where you can make this transition changes that can really bring a real change in the coming generations to come. So yeah, that's a great point you said, Bianca. What about the local, as you rightly said about the employment? What do you think that, once you are graduated or once you get out of the school or once you are in the last year of the school, what do you think that needs to be a little bit more changes so that, the youth after the school, some people who wants to get into employment, some people who wants to get into their own field, would that help if there is something in place in the school itself at the last year of the school?
Mm. So I know at my old high school there was something called careers, and that was a program that helped kids get jobs and help them
Hmm.
choose their career path.
Hmm.
But I will say that from students I've spoken to, it hasn't been that successful. So I
Hmm.
think there are programs in place. We just
Hmm.
need to make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. So I think we need to uplift the programs that we already have to
That's true.
help them work.
So more accountability in maintaining the programs that we already exist, so that that can be updated or upgraded or heard and then made more impact rather than leave the program as it is.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Absolutely. No, this is beautiful. So what's your now, finally, what's your vision in terms of, the communities that you want to see in your time that can, as you rightly said, uplift them or upgrade them or update them? What do you see in the communities in where you are going to stand that your vision is that you would like to see, like in the ideal world or in a optimistic world, whatever we call it? What's your world look like in your area?
I want to see the local government working for the community and like not the other way around. So I want to see more listening and I want to see more understanding and more action rather than a whole bunch of talk and nothing
Mm,
being done because we
yeah.
continue to see a whole bunch of promises, but nothing's being done, nothing's being changed.
Mm,
I think we need to listen to who we are working for, which is the community, because we're working to meet their needs. Um, I think we need to be able to ensure that each group within the community is respected and heard because things like the youth, they are overlooked. Um,
mm,
they aren't asked the questions.
right.
Um, so I just think it's about creating that connection so that we're actually able to make the changes that are needed rather than the changes that we think are needed.
Mm, yeah. And what do you think about when people talk about, the hurdles with the transport issues or the communicating problems that we face today, whether there is a good enough service for buses from this point to that point, or parking issues when it comes to businesses or when it comes to, navigating from one area to another area. And there's a lot of work going on when it comes to transport. And then that becomes like a big hurdle.
Mhm.
Do you think that the communication has needs to be improved for all the communities living and having businesses in every different area, so that proper communication channel can be, in advance, like, okay, we are going to have the works done here on this day and that day. How do you see that as your, one of the priorities as a young who wants to reach one destination to another destination on promptly and without any hurdles? What's
Um,
your going to be view on that?
I think it's super important because I am a uni student myself, so I use public transport all the time. I drive to the train station, I get the train, and then I get on the bus to get to uni. So it's quite a long travel. And I actually think that is quite expensive, to be fair.
Mm,
Even with the new caps being put in place,
mm,
um, because I actually work two jobs right now, and one of them I make $60 a week from. So $50 for public transport. That leaves me $10 extra from that job. So I
mm.
think it's not affordable. And I
Not a
definitely
yeah.
know there are other students like me out there that are spending that same prices and they're making the same amount of money. So I think it's really unaffordable to expect people in that situation to be able to afford that and do it, but you don't have an option. Like you have to go to uni, you have to go to your work. You don't
Yeah.
have an option to not go. So I think it's about ensuring that AT is actually delivering the services that we are paying for. Because recently there has been a cut in services just within my area. There was some sort of cut, and it meant that I was getting home half an hour later and paying the same amount of price for services that actually weren't happening. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think there's a lot of issues with AT transport.
Right, right. And so there is a lot of work to be done in that area.
Yeah,
You are in that generation where you don't want to see next generation also having the same issues, right? Basically, that's what we are here for, to make the community better. And so I want to now, almost we are going to end, but I want to ask you this very vital question that I ask myself is like, as a local board, as a local community, dealing with Auckland Council, and then Auckland Council dealing with the central government. So there are certain areas in our local community is been shared by the Auckland Council and the government involved. So whether it is investment in the local communities, certain areas, then government says that we will fund Auckland Council, and then Auckland Council trickles down to all local board. So, like for example, the storm water and the floods issues and the housing issues, most of the things it sits with the council, but the council is dependent on the central government for the funding and all that. How do you see that, to make it more smoother as a young person, that, we should not be having passing the buck from one government agency to another central government, or two governments, talking that, oh, we can't do this now, we have to do it with this process, that process, and that gets delayed. So when it's delayed, then the communities get affected. When the communities gets affected, then the communities say, oh, we have been telling this, but they don't listen. But who don't listen? The council or the central government or what? That's a $1 million question always. So as a
Yeah.
young person, how would you, make these kind of, changes for the better, for positivity, for awareness, and for everything that can be resolved, or at least give an honest answer to the communities, basically.
Yeah. I think it probably stems from like a connection between all different boards where they're trying to focus on their own issues.
Hmm.
Um, and I think if we're able to create a stronger connection, I think we'll be able to be seen a bit more because we are overlooked and we are underinvested into. And I think it is because we don't have that connection with the higher governments. So I think if we're able to create that, and that means we're able to highlight our needs
Hmm.
because we're heard now, we're seen now.
Yeah.
But without that, we will continue to be overlooked and we will continue to not have change and have all these promises made, but no real
Yeah.
change happening.
Hmm. So coming back to one of the final question I want to ask is, how do you see in the making of policy making process? Do you think that's an area also that you would like to get involved in the policy making?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm here to make a change. I wanna listen to the community. I wanna make difference. And I think policy
Sure.
making is definitely part of that.
Yeah. That's good. Wonderful. I mean, you are here for a change, as you have already taken the first step, being the first 18-year-old to apply for the local board candidate. It's amazing. So I want you give you an opportunity here to all my listeners to say why they should vote for you, what you're gonna make your pitch to vote for you. Tell our listeners what are the change you can bring, drastic change, or the status quo. I call it like, traditional status quo. No, we want to bring fresh, we want to do something new. It's not the, as they say, there is a saying, oh, that's the same wine, old wine in the new bottle. Or do you want to create altogether a new opportunity and a new policy that could really, really make those changes for suited for the modern day world?
Yeah, so I think within government, we always have the same people who are elected every year. It's always very similar groups of people. And I think by electing the same people, you know exactly what you're going to get. You
Yeah.
know exactly what change and what drives they have. But I think by voting for me, you're able to get something different. You're able to get a new perspective. You're able to get someone who's actually using the public services every single day. I spend so much time in a public library. I spend hours on public transport every day. I rely on what the community offers us. So I think by doing that, it means that someone who's actually using the community and relies on the community, it means that I'm able to understand what people need because I'm experiencing it myself where I know other candidates wouldn't be taking public transport every single day to get them to
Mm,
places. Um, so I think by voting for me, you're voting for someone who's in the community and who experiences everything that the rest of the population is also experiencing.
mm.
And I'm able to create connection between both the younger generation and the older generation
Yeah.
so that there are people who have a voice who don't necessarily have it before.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all the listeners, I can say one thing that she's one first and foremost. She is the local candidate. She has been in that area, I think, generations, fourth generation about. So she knows the area very well. That's first thing to all my listeners and to all the people who are going to go and vote for in that area. Second thing is she is quite very much fresh out of, as we always say, she's just 18, but she is here to make those changes. And when you have this kind of young people, putting up the hand to raise their voice and raise the concern for the community, raise the community's voice basically, rather than her voice, because she's a part of the community. So I personally feel that that's a great for all the listeners to understand that when you vote for certain things to make those happening, but then the candidate itself has got certain background that you look for. But here I am interviewing Bianca at the age of 18 for a local board candidate, which is absolutely amazing privilege for me also to interview you, Bianca. So thank you once again for this beautiful. And for all the listeners, please vote on your voting day, irrespective of who you vote. But here is a candidate that I am interviewing today that I have feel the pleasure that we should give new opportunities for new people, for new ideas, and not just rely on dependent on the status quo and the traditional way of doing. As she rightly said, she wants to put her hands in everywhere. She's doing all the things that as a right person for a candidate or as a community person. So once again, Bianca, this is your last final words to the listeners, and then we will close this interview. Beautiful. Tell me, tell us your last message.
My last message. It would be the fact that I think we need to make change in the community because right now change isn't happening. And to do that, we need to create a bond with both the community and the local board so we actually know what needs to happen in our community.
Mm,
And so that the opinion is coming from multiple different people and not just one.
mm.
And I think to do that, we need to redirect investment back into to our community so that we are able to meet the needs of those in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well said. Yeah. So definitely investing in the community, that's what we are all here for. And this local board elections is all about communities, is all about local communities. And it starts from there and then it goes up to the central government as well, who is also looking overview. But the ground reality is the local board, the Auckland Council and the local councils that operate. And to it's a very hard job, it's a tough job, but it's always a job where we want to make a difference and make a change for the better of the generations to come. So I put this hand up to you, Bianca. Beautiful initiative that you have taken to make not just change in the community but for the generations to come, who will be at your age and will be thanking that yes, somebody did something, and then that's why we could enjoy. So thank you so much, Bianca, for this
Thank
beautiful
you.
conversation that I had, and wish you all the best and the luck to win this election. And we look forward to once again bringing you on this channel once, whether you elect or not, but we will bring you back. Thank you so much,
Thank
Bianca.
you for having me.
All good.